야 다당 아주 리틀 뮤지 제라 대당 아니 소와 대달리 시비페나 다 외다고 같이 간다고 해도이나 뒤뒤기 돌아 아니 가르스는 심샤니 그런 거 외대기랑 시다 뭐 간도 이미 뒤뒤기 돌아 아니 심테니 감다고 예와이나 대대 가르스는 바지 시테반예션을 샤나요 바지 디게지레스 되게도서.
So if we are to approach this practice initially, maybe rather than immediately taking an object which is subtle, such as impermanence and selflessness, another way in which we approach this is by meditating on what we call non-associated compounded phenomena. But I understand maybe this is a little bit difficult too. So rather than that, we can maybe look at a very gross object, such as a ray of light, an orb of light, which is neither thought, sensation, or body. And maybe we can cultivate that as the object in mindfulness of phenomena.
제도 드리지 내용도 안에 다원한 시기 간주 르시야 되는데 시자동지 뭐라고 가르쳐 버렸다. 드리지 용도 앞에나 조지 강가를 르시야 두게 되는 시장기지. 드리지 내용도 드리다고 지와이나 아니 가도 가르쳐는 조지를 미비 감대서 가르쳐는 리테만지 채널을 만들고 그러와서 감동대 가르쳐는 리테만지 채널을 만들고 그러와서 르시야 시 자동지를 가르쳐는 조지 강가를 르시야기 대시대 저한다고 이나 So now,
when we say that at this point we can cultivate the object as something like an orb of light or a ray of light in this practice, it is important that there are interpretations wherein, when we are talking about mindfulness of body, the term body itself is interpreted in many different ways. For example, there are some interpretations wherein the term body is taken to also refer to matter, to form. And as such, within that interpretation, then any kind of meditation on form or compounded phenomena would constitute meditation on mindfulness of body rather than mindfulness of phenomena.
제도 다투르기 돈이 되셔 나와이나 다단다가르스나 디미디지기 차 수지 많이 비 디미디지기 차트 속에 있는 라 안에 심대 감텔라 아니 치티바냐샤 다 메타파도 다음에 봤세고라 어디디 아니 수지 많이 비 디미디지 어디디리 미디 감고테솔라 아니 가르스나 치티바냐샤스 샤나요 디고여라서.
So if we follow that interpretation, then at this point in mindfulness of phenomena we cannot really cultivate something like a form or compounded phenomena as the object. Herein, within this interpretation, then only a non-associated compounded phenomena, such as impermanence, such as selflessness, must be cultivated as the object.
제도 당한서 논충군이 시와다고 제와이나 가르레스나 아니 대만시가 미바텔라 아니 롱기치니 동지 치니스 도스치니 니라고 시용 그래서.
So from the Buddhist perspective, then when we are talking about meditating on non-associated compounded phenomena as the object, then we talk about the specific characteristics of the object as well as the general characteristics of the object.
다 롱기 치니스 온도 류롱기 투모모이 비 치니지여라 어디서라 가르레스나 롱기 치니스 류크롱기 랑시 뭐 간디지 여바이나 딘디기 돌아 아니 가르레스 와이나 아니 이미틸 아니 샘티니 냐마자비 니가스 롱기 치니스 오토치니스 그래서.
So specific characteristics herein refers to the unique, uncommon, or the defining characteristics of, say, our physical form. So the rather than the body itself, the characteristic or the feature itself or the nature itself is taken as the object.
대체 따지 치니스 온데 벤나 류더비 땡리 치 치니 강원에 가르쳐서 류마타파 세아도 류다메바 어 딘디기 돌아니 간제비 니가스 가르서는 치 치니스 치 치니라 감스 오토스게레서.
Now General characteristics herein refers to the characteristics that a particular object shares with similar objects. For example, all compounded phenomena share the general characteristic of being impermanent, being compounded.
제좀 다 류기데네 마타 파송도 다 로강도 지치니 간소가 가레서는 마타 파스야데 디지 투몽이 감각이 지치다 버려도라스 제좀 콜 가레서는 지치니 쓰고 지스 가레서 마타 파송도 디지 감각을 쳐대와 인선 코데데도 가운데 류텐데 가운데 가레서는 지치니 감스야데 어토치 차데 그래서
So as we now understand, meditating on the general characteristics of the object herein refers to the common features or the common characteristics that the object shares with other objects. So, for example, when we are talking about meditating on impermanence of the object, then that impermanence, that characteristics of being impermanent is shared with all compounded phenomena.
다는 시기 류기 때인데 다음에 반다고 둔두 강화 예나요 지바다 그래서 다음에 봤어야지 최 당지기 때인데 샤 니록다고 차대와 인자 가르레서 예나 데카르레스나 류기 때인데 지치니 간수에서 어두스진 차대게 그래서
And then similarly, when we begin to meditate on selflessness of the object, then selflessness is a characteristic that all phenomena share in the sense that all phenomena have the nature of selflessness.
다는 시기 가서 다 좋아한다고 샤이나 좋아 대완다고 예나 코너 디위 런시데라 미니가야 데라 런기치니 감바당 좋아 코너기 때인데 마다바당 다음에 받아서 감발라 아니 가르레 지치니 감바스 오토치니마 린디토니 지바다고 차도 그래서
So similarly, when we are talking about the meditation on the specific and general characteristics of an object such as body, then we begin to meditate on the specific characteristics of the body, the general characteristics of the body in the sense impermanence, selflessness, and so forth. Then it is indeed the same when we begin to meditate on the specific characteristics of sensations or feelings and the general characteristics of sensations or feelings. So with the meditation on specific characteristics of sensations or feelings, then we look at the nature of pleasantness, unpleasantness, or neutrality. And then when we begin to meditate on the general characteristics of sensations and feelings, then similarly we begin to meditate on the impermanent characteristics and the the characteristics of selflessness of these feelings and sensations.
지도 다는 시기 지바리다 생기 때인데 런기치니 간스야데 생기 런지 사시리바 산사릭스야데라 아니 베 가르주메 따네 어떤두기 돌아 센세지디 네바데라 런기치니 감스야다 아니 생기지기 지지긴 도와 마타바가 다운 다음에 바 가운데 생기 때니 지치니 간스 어두스치니마 리반 도톤다버데 어두스치니 지바마 연구여레서 대지제
So we apply the same approach to mindfulness, to taking the object as the mind. So when we say that we meditate on the specific characteristics of the mind, then we meditate on the specific characteristic of the mind as being clear and knowing its nature and its function. And then when we meditate on the general characteristics of the object as mind, then we begin to meditate on the fact that the mind is changing momentarily. So as such, it's impermanent. And similarly, selflessness.
다 주스야 지바레스 주다 보이나 다른로기 도모모이 비치 가라주는 조동 소화도 아니 가래 심리 신비 아니 주단지 주디 땡게 런런기 런시 아니 친이시야데 가운데 가르레스나 런기 친이시야도 아니 디텐데 아니 가르레스나 젤레칭게 다음에 받아보 오트리지의 간도와이나 가르레 아니 지치니 간스 오투스치니 연구여레서
So similarly, if we take the object as a phenomena other than thoughts, sensations, mind, or body, then we begin to meditate on the specific characteristics of the particular phenomena, characteristics which are unique, uncommon, and defining. And then similarly, when we begin to meditate on the general characteristics of the particular phenomena, then we meditate on the characteristics of impermanence and selflessness that it shares with all phenomena.
지금 다대 간조 가르르스나 다 농춘도니 마시디야기 테마니샤기 감 시아데 당아조 노드더버지 두시는 만데 시자와다 보이나 두시진이 차되기래서.
So this is a short presentation and discussion on the Buddhist instructions on how to cultivate the four foundations of mindfulness.
지금 다 템바냐샤기 고데파 자체보다 버시고에는 시다게 자체보다 땡서 보시오지 차되고 그래서 되리 먹어와지 당아조 뒤디다 버시와이나 노주노니 다 템바냐샤기 감데라 미바데라 가르르스나 롱이 친이도 찌친이 시아되기 고아다보 럽진 도디다 버시와이나 도진이 차되게 그래서 되지지.
So if we really have to go into a detailed explanation, then the presentation, the classical presentation, is quite extensive. And as such, that's not the scope of our discussion at all. But just to sum up, we can begin to understand that within the practice of the four foundations of mindfulness, it is important to understand that a practitioner must learn to meditate on the specific characteristics and the general characteristics of the object.
도시 아니 단단하게 가르려서 와이나.
This got choice. You have a question?
Does the Buddha speak of a different kind of meditation than the one we've learned? A meditation in which we don't visualize an object, but rather focus on a specific feeling in the context of a situation we experienced or would like to experience? So for example, staying in meditation with the feeling we had during a joyful or emotional moment, or with a feeling we would like to feel.
저네 당당한 적이 아니 종달집에 곰 테마인베스라 아니 낭댕기 룩나라스라 아니 곰 신다 냠레데 요르베스 페나차샤나스라 소소라 초아는 보여라 소소라 초아는 보 춘조든데 라 야나 소소라 초아 초르니 주조든데 라 가와기 초아든데 초르니 주조든데 라 가와기 초아 가와 곰에 라 딘데기 초아 곰에기 아니 곰 냠네든데 요르베스
레다 쩌다 농주기 레일라 단단하게 시대야데 간디 도디세레마도 자치무 슈지레스 페나처럼 잠바간 추거레라 잠바간야 예레 닌제 간야 예레 안타와나지기지 단단 마다바라 다메 바도 동바니 시야도 어느 든두기 가르레스나 간조 페나 세미젤라소바 든두기 간제 나로페 타임바 모보 용괴레스.
So when we look at the Buddhist presentation on meditation, then there exist many different types of meditation, wherein with regards to your question, then there are practices which are aimed towards meditating on love, meditating on joy, meditating on compassion, meditating on equanimity. These are what we call meditation on the four boundless qualities of the mind. And then similarly, as we touched upon it, there are meditation which are focused on impermanence, selflessness, and so forth. So there exist really many different types of meditation.
Pena ngazun docha da shukchimba da bachiwaina docha tindu ginyimbola kar gangu gore sewaina ane mdoba ganya ta kontro da bachiwaina tindu ginyimbola kar asna chamba gangu sea ane ro chi ngaja chimbo da tindu gichiwaina tindu gi la nyimbola kar garasna kamjirai sea gangu ata ane chi tumu tindu yowa shukchimba da waina tindu ginyimbola kar asna kamjirai la soba gangu sea de ganga narope karasna 타이바 두두치니 용거여레서 녀모레레라 녀보 투치니 감텐도레레레 마다와 투치니 모볼랍데게레서.
But with that being said, within the spiritual tradition of Buddhism, a lot of emphasis is actually placed on being able to recognize the afflictions and to use meditation as a means to address and overcome the disturbing emotions that we experience. So, for example, if we come to recognize that our behaviors and attitudes are influenced by a particular disturbing emotion, such as anger, such as attachment, such as ignorance, and so forth, then we begin to meditate on these emotions and then to cultivate within that practice an antidote to it. For example, when if our behavior and attitude is uniquely dominated by attachment, then we begin to meditate on the ugliness of the object of our desire as an antidote to overcome attachment. Then similarly, if our behavior and attitudes are uniquely dominated by anger, then we begin to meditate on love, forbearance as an antidote. And similarly, if our behavior and attitudes are uniquely dominated by a sense of arrogance, then we are instructed to cultivate as the object what we call the differentiation of elements, wherein we begin to meditate on the immensity of the natural elements such as air, water, earth, fire, and so forth, in order to overcome that kind of inflated sense of ego. And similarly, with regards to ignorance, we begin to meditate on interdependence, how everything is interrelated and interdependent.
근데 더 나시기 소소 산에 대화도 진득이 지안도 타는 지와이네 단다 띵인지라서 봐 그게 편연다보다 단조니가라서 봐 든든도 지강한다고 이나 온 산에 가서도 소화들이지니 지겨라서.
So the practice of meditation in Buddhism is always tied with the spiritual transformation that one seeks. So as such, for example, when we are talking about developing a sense of joy in our meditation, then that sense of joy must be derived from a spiritual appreciation of the act of meditation. So as such, as we already discussed before, we begin to develop a sense of joy, a sense of enthusiasm by meditating on the purpose, the benefits of the act of meditation, and also we begin to meditate on what we call the 8 freedoms and the 10 advantages, the unique opportunity and freedom that we as human beings have to cultivate spiritual practice.
tabdiya gulutin milusia de tabdiya rawayina miluti shidaga tsachi modo rintung chimbo ane ruwa shinda lechun di ting karasin dik pe tsachi goyo ba lyudin di ting ta susu gini beba rawa chiwa rawa yawayina ane jik chawa kare jini dhutu goyo ba ane nga rozo ishi bi tunro sinji shimba de sola sano tonga rawayina ane khonso la kanga rawa chiyo yawayina kanga ting kanga sewa la ane karayasana thana chi mishi ba tong kanga kare yawana ting donli chi mata ba 아니 마부 소자도 소야나 대노식이 배 강아 뭐지 마다와지 현동도 와서 말어서 매일 리터에 와이나 기 소속이 강아서 왔잖아요. 뭐 현나 로바체트와 로진이 줄리디 쳐봐다 봐봐. 든득이 싸는 뭐지 되니 레데데 자치 보인 바당 든득이 돈에 온 사도 소소 사나 가와동 대와지야. 든득이 다다마다 뭐지 열에서
and this comes these kind of instructions and practices come from the fact that from the Buddhist perspective, we look at the human life or the human birth as something very, very precious. And precious in the sense that only human beings really do have the opportunity and the facilities to cultivate an effective spiritual practice. And as such, one is through contemplation through meditation on these unique opportunities, freedoms, and advantages that we have as a human being to come to appreciate the human life, this human birth, to take joy in it, and and then to be able to generate a sense of empathy, generate a sense of concern, sympathy for other sentient beings who do not have the same opportunity to cultivate effective spiritual practice, such as animals and so forth.
Does that help?
Does that help?
Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that help? Does that hel
Does the Buddha talk about gratitude at all, either to ourselves or to a higher power, or about the importance of being in a state of joy?
Higher power in the sense? So in Buddhism, we do not really talk about a higher power in that sense. Higher power herein maybe refers to enlightened beings. So, can you please repeat the question again?
Does the Buddha talk about gratitude at all, either to ourselves or to a higher power, like within ourselves, or about the importance of being in a state of joy?
Tene korangi tiyode dirt. Ani tumba korangi isra, chumden negi isra, ani teen temba la jura, kadin temba la etikola kesungyo besra. Penachashana susu la teen temba ra. Yana shen la teen temba. Tende kola sungyo bes. Tema ina ani ta nganzu tanda michuma ra. Michuma le hakbegi ra ta. Nibada dembe ani chik nganzu ki 당이 된데 요래라 된대라. 된데라 간주 덤바기 계송교 요래베스라. 테마이나 아니 대단스라. 아니 덤바기 아니 간주기 다소소 가데라. 가와단 데와라. 곰낭라 가와다 데와라 아니 냠바샤바라. 곰낭라 가와다 데와라 곰바. 뭐 된데콜라 계송교 요래베스.
가와다 데와라 냠바샤바. 자, 된데다 요래스 페나 덤바기 다 까디 템바시아 티케 숭거레베서라 다데 숭거레스 페나 간주 가레스네 신제 더부시고 요에나 디칼라 가레스네 동보 신제 단지 마시바도 티템바 티조아 아니 영게 잡아 아니 니지가 라섬송데 다 티바치보니 시데야기 아니 가레레스네 장조산데 동보 뒤를 마지비 가로도 동보 가레스네 신제 단지라 찬양비 심 예네 자동미바 아니 심 찬양바 가야 델레티네 아니 가레스네 신제 단지 지와 토마이모네 소속에 마치비 니바 마치 기비니까서 아니 마스야 시다기 까디 첨부 힘바 까디 첨부 힘비 줘라 아니 마스야 되기라 아니 소속이 응위니 아니 텔레스 거봐 드리다 드리스비 보나디 요아인 디지스 아니 딘디기 아니 마기 세제 탄지기 아니 동할 시야데 아니 녜기 세기 시야데 아니 가레스나 라섬 아니 디줘라 아니 신지 시야데 도스지니 마람바지 자주시 연구래서
So with regards to your first question about does the Buddha talk about gratitude to ourselves and others, then this is indeed the case, that gratitude has an important place within the Buddhist practice because when we are talking about the Mahayana practice, then the Mahayana practice, if one is to cultivate the Mahayana practice, one must first be able to generate what we call the awakening mind, bodhicitta. An altruistic intention to be of service and help to all sentient beings. So if one is to generate such an awakening mind of bodhicitta, which wants to be of help and service to all sentient beings, then the Buddha advises us to contemplate on what is called the 7 precepts of causes and fruit, wherein you begin to first recognize all sentient beings as having been your mothers, and from time immemorial. So, and as such, through that recognition as sentient beings, as your mothers, then you overcome all conceptions of nearness and farness, the normal manner in which we identify with others, saying that these are my dear ones, these I don't know, and as such, you do not have any sense of concern to those people who you do not consider close or dear to you. So in order to overcome that, one must first learn to recognize all sentient beings as having been our mothers. And on basis of that recognition, one begins to think about the kindness of our mothers in having raised us in previous lifetimes. And then through that, one begins to come to repay that kindness. And then to develop the resolve, the pure intention to be able to be of service to all sentient beings to all sentient beings. So in this manner, gratitude has an important place in Buddhism in order to develop what we call the awakening mind of bodhicitta. Niba di diri nganzu gida nganzu michuma le habara jiden le debe dangi irada dinde niba chenpo dinde kola shigi yorbes.
주반에 라바 네버 첨보스. 대지도 어느 찌디 가르래 대화 가세.
Sim God and Dewala and Nyambarshagi Gomja Sudin Sungyurbes.
제조 드리지는 연구를 빼는 동부 섬 가와데 대화를 세우는 아주 치미시 감이 니가서 아니 동부 가르서는 신제 단계를 가르리서는 예레미야 가실을 차대야던 가실을 동세야 되지 메디와 신제 간디지 얘는 소소라 파마는 시기 배 가르친 보여 봐. 가로주 가르서는 퀄리티와 통마에 뭐 봐야 단단 디기 신델라 소소기 파마라기 소소라 가르친 보 좋은 시기 단다기 너버지 단달로 소소를 너버지 딩기 신지 되게요. 정하면 나서 저랑을 가르서는 디노지 좀 오래서 가르서는 저랑 그 파마 지오래 산야바 지고래 돈야세 지로 와. 아니 가와서 어디다 신지 단지 강갈베 대화도 아니 디지 퍼선 수바 용화시고 세와 아니 균리딘디 대화도 아니 신지 단지라베 이두 가르서는 가로 대화 텐데 지장바 아니 동아 텐데지 인지 세야도 어따 텐두기 가르서는 아니 신지 단지를 디지도 demba 슈스냐비 대화 일에 제다야도 아니 신지 단지를 빠그러서는 뇌세메바 아니 장바도 텐두기 용바 슈냐바 텐두기 강기 때소요 열에서.
So then with regards to the third part of your question, does the Buddha talk about abiding in joy in meditation? Then this also is an important part. Now, when we are talking about cultivating joy in our meditation, joy as the object in meditation, then it is talked within the context of what we call the four boundless qualities, four limitless qualities. So these are equanimity, joy, love, and compassion. And equanimity, as we already discussed before, through a sense of gratitude that we develop towards sentient beings, to all sentient beings, on the recognition that they have been our mothers in a previous life. So as such, in this life, even though some sentient beings might harm you, but it is indeed the case that in our previous lives, they have raised us as a son, as a daughter, or so. So as such, we overcome all conceptions of nearness and farness, and as such, overcome the manner in which we relate to others with a sense of attachment or aversion, but to be able to look at all sentient beings with equal love and equal concern. That's equanimity. And then based on that equanimity, one begins to cultivate a sense of joy. Joy in the sense you develop a wish that all sentient beings are present with the causes of happiness for themselves. That's joy. And then based on that, you develop love and compassion, a wish to see all sentient beings free from the causes of suffering. So in this manner, we begin to meditate on joy, equanimity, love, and compassion. Now, with regards to your question about higher power, that he doesn't understand. Jigden ko bapo ra hawanchu ra dindegi ani jigden ko khegi ani ta tani shukchambo nuba chambo ji yorelani ichiro yorwa nangchuna la da tedawe ani jigden le debe ra dindegi dani shukchambo ji la ani ichi chigi yorbes
jigden ko bapo sugo gaso
ro jigden ko bapo da nganzu ichi chigi yo marwa ina jigden le debe dinde nuba yora dani dinde ji la ichi chigi yorbes Nangbala.
Yeah, she's asking if not for higher power, for who do Buddhists pray to, like pray in the morning.
Okay, now it's clear.
And she's just asking more about like who the prayers are devoted to.
Okay. That tiwa kapdu gurnalasra. Teda shinda menasra. Ni tiwa kapdu gurna ani nganzo ki domba da thungi do melam da jage yorwas. Melam sula soa tab ge resta. Soa tab sa disu rest.
Ta teda sozu nganzo naju shide ya kunju siate la nganzo soa tab ge yorwas.
So Buddhists pray to what we call the three refuges, three objects of refuge: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha.
nomba ina tesum deris ta nuba da turi da bosono de tongo yoyena ngazo pena mo khorong la karasene never pena jusu gutene lega chondu never chechong ri ndamada mubu jingo ros ta sanjira boyina tino shigi karesena sinjigi shende chebala tundugi neba ga peba da mandawa misigi karesena neba chembo tundujini yungo yoresena tundujini yores neba siate.
So in that sense, when you ask about do the Buddha talk about a higher power, or do Buddhists believe in a higher power, then we can make sense of this when we say that Buddhists pray to the three jewels, the three objects of refuge, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So for example, when we use the term power, power herein seems to refer to potential. And now potential. So if we think about it in very normal terms, in a society, if someone really has the ability to be of service to others, to affect other people's lives, then we say that this person is powerful. So similarly, a Buddhist look at the three jewels as having the power or the potential to really help others, to really affect change in others' lives. Does it help? No?
It's a good question. Very good. A little bit I understood. It's a good question.
Ngazuk konzuk sina nipa sina pene durisigare ngazuk rabayena kunju siyate kanduchi shigaresena sanji siya kunju siyate ngaron chola ma karesena lamdunji yene duri che gore siyate lamdunji chegi uresi yene yo lamdunji chabi shodela sozo rangi kale jane ani kare kangatili chogu gore mato tele kunju ki shin lamdunji yale lase ani karesena kangali towa tunduki chaptoya tunduki killing ngazuk killing resena ti killing maresa ale tombote jinjaina.
So maybe your question about higher power would be addressed if we understand this about Buddhism. Even though Buddhists pray to the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, they do not pray to the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha in the hopes that they will transform our lives magically. That we only look at the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha as authentic source of guidance, and the responsibility to follow the path rests solely on the practitioner themselves.
Te chiondu kunju ki kare nganzola ruba chi goresena lamden chi yaderes ta lamden che she yade sozo gi nyane che ni sozo gi jola pondo gi yande da che tawayina te gi teni nguni sozo gi kangang ngui su tongge di kareseni chusi yade changru chusi yade sozo lane tani sozo jile che de tokwa chi yoraso o te gi ngui su karesena kanga tela nyamosina madu tela khata ngui khate chinge de karesena sozo gi kale jani sozo gi jile che de yagi chuti gi tus che ni kangali ngui su towa chi.
So even within the three jewels, a Buddhist looks at the jewel of teachings or the jewel of Dharma as the actual object of refuge. That the teachings, if we study, if we practice them, then that can help us to overcome our suffering.
Ta gendu kunjo seonde kangate soso nyande karesena chinyane chigi tuba no chuduk dabo chedi tuschini kunjo sande shade o tuschini shade gresa.
And the third jewel of refuge is the Sangha. Sangha herein referring to the spiritual community. So the spiritual community can help you in your spiritual path. So that's why it is understood as an object of refuge too.
Tangato pele lashe shiwayena pena ro ani re dada dom hendo ani nas san pe jan sigres sanji se de dada se chund chene lande jigi dong res nasa ngus ka de jigi de seres ne me de ma do dada marwas de kares ne chu se de res ani gindu kunjo se de neba de la khadu gi tadu jenge roba jenge kares na nasa do de kares na ani kare de sewayena gindu kunjo do de nasa do chode tu chini de shi lilabot jawayena o tu chini sigres.
So maybe if we are to understand the manner in which the Buddhists approach the three jewels and the manner in which they pray to the three jewels, you will understand it more clearly if we use this analogy. So when you are sick, you consult a doctor, right? And the doctor prescribes you a medicine. And then there is the nurse who helps you to administer that medicine. So the doctor is understood as the Buddha who prescribes you this medicine. And the doctor guides you about how to take the medicine and what kind of health or fitness regimen you should follow and so forth. So this instruction that the doctor imparts to you, gives to you, is the teachings, the Dharma. And then the nurse helps you to get back on your feet when you are sick. She helps you to eat the medicine on time, remind you on time. That's the spiritual community. So if we understand this analogy, then you would understand the Buddhist approach to the three jewels.
제좀 가서 산제 잡아이나 다 도도 잡아지는 손지게 란도 지디야디 소소게 란에다 감자 델레티네 소소 그랑 칼레지안에 베전이 강아티를 줘버렸어 도도 잡아테 차디 그래서 다디미도.
So within this analogy, it is the responsibility of the patient himself to take the medicine on time, to follow the instructions that the doctor and the nurse gives you. So within the Buddhist spiritual tradition, even though there is a teacher, the Buddha, and there is a teaching given by the Buddha, and there is a spiritual community, the responsibility to practice these teachings, to study these teachings, lies solely with the practitioner themselves.
제도 저당 가서 지바래 왔어. 저런 로중 지와예나라 리가 저와 컨디션이 좋아예나라 소소기 칼레지 소중이니 베제 제타와라와예나 저와 카를은 좋아예나 리라보지 두터야지 도와서 소소 칼레게 맞아바라와예나 젠다게 로버체네 되네 저런 로중 야보소서야당 아니 지 젠다티스 리가티스 야보 차스야데 용기 무도 와서 소로버데 다 소소랑기 아니 베 칼레지야 되로버데 차디게 그래서
And we can think about it by relating it to our own experience. And if we are realistic, then for example, any kind of activity, any kind of thing that you undertake in your life, if you yourself do not put in the effort, then praying to some higher power does not really help us at all. You have to be able to put in the effort yourself if you want to see the desired result. So that's the approach that Buddhists take with regards to their practice.
So
we will.
Basically, go for literature, like where they have categorized the types of emotions when we're talking about object of mind or this non-associated compounded phenomena. Just the list of them or how I categorize them.
Yes. So the most extensive literature is found in the Abhidharma literatures, Abhidharma Samucha and Abhidharma Kosha. And now a more modern list will be found in the translation of what we call the Lamrim text, the stages of the path, the great treatise on the stages of the path, and in this, the third volume, which is solely dedicated to Shamatha and Vipassana. All this.